Dog mauling claims teen's life. NSW teen dies after vicious dog attack in Hunterville. Police launch investigation. A 17-year-old girl has died in hospital after suffering catastrophic injuries in a dog attack in the NSW Hunterville, sparking renowned calls for stricter dogs ownership law. Now let's uncover the details of this story on the AI podcast.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really tough subject, but one that needs urgent attention. It's about a recent tragic dog attack in New South Wales. We've looked at news articles, official reports, really trying to understand not just the awful event itself, but also the bigger picture, these recurring patterns, and the pressure building for changes in dog ownership laws. So our mission today is to sort of peel back the layers on this, understand what happened, see the history, and grasp why policymakers are facing such intense calls for action. Okay, so let's unpack the specific event that's brought all this to the forefront again. It starts with just devastating news out of the NSW Hunter Valley. On a Thursday morning, a 17-year-old girl, Annalyse Blyton, she was just studying for her exams, something totally normal. She was at a friend's house in Singleton, a familiar place. You'd think it was safe. But then this ordinary day just turns into an absolute nightmare. She was brutally mauled by a dog that lived there on the property. Yeah, and the dog involved, it was a 10-year-old mixed breed, specifically described as a boxer, bull Arab, and Irish wolfhound cross. And what's really striking here, I think, is where it happened. Inside a fenced yard, right? Not out in public somewhere. A private property, usually considered secure. Then the immediate aftermath sounds like pure chaos. Passers-by heard the noise. They bravely rushed in, trying to help Annalise, even with the dog being aggressive. Incredible courage. Emergency services got there quickly. Police eventually had to shoot the dog.
Which they did with the owner's consent, it's important to note. A horrific situation for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And Singleton Council Rangers were there too, assisting. For Annalise, her fight for life started right then. Terrible injuries, head, neck, body. She was airlifted straight to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital, critical condition. But despite everything, days later, on the Monday, she tragically passed away from those injuries.
That's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. NSW police confirmed her death. A report's now going to the coroner. Acting Superintendent Justin Corns described the scene as, quote, confronting. He praised the bravery of the people who jumped in, called it an incredible act.
And understandably so, running into that kind of situation.
Exactly. The dog's owners, they're cooperating fully with the police. They describe the dog's actions as out of character, which you hear sometimes, but it doesn't lessen the tragedy.
No, it doesn't. That phrase out of character is, well, it comes up often in these cases. It speaks to the shock, the unpredictability, perhaps.
And the community response was immediate, too. A GoFundMe was set up for the family, raised nearly $15,000 very quickly. Shows how much people cared.
It really does. And, what's insightful or perhaps disturbing about this specific incident is how that seemingly safe space, the fenced private yard, became the location of such a severe event. It really challenges that common perception, doesn't it? That major attacks only happen, say, with strays in public parks.
Right. You think fenced yard, you think contained, safe.
Exactly. And it might point to perhaps a gap in understanding animal behavior, even within their own territory. Maybe owners let their guard down a bit. Yeah. And the owner's shock, saying it was out of character, it underlines that even years of companionship don't always equal perfect predictability. We need to look beyond just the immediate event.
That point about a private tragedy sparking public debate is so important. And here's where it gets, well, deeply concerning when you look at the bigger picture. Annalise's death, as horrific as it is, isn't some completely isolated freak event. It tragically highlights a pattern in NSW that we really need to confront.
Yes, it's part of a series, unfortunately.
Exactly. It's the latest in a string of fatal dog attacks that have led to repeated calls for, tighter rules, better controls across the state. Just to give some context here, we need to remember other incidents. They share this awful common thread. Like in 2020, a tiny 5-week-old baby boy killed by the family's American Staffordshire Terrier on the Central Coast, while his mother slept nearby.
It's unimaginable.
And then in 2022, a 2-year-old boy, Jaden Pollard, mauled to death by 2 dogs at a motel in Cowra in Central West NSW. These aren't just isolated news stories. They represent lives lost, families shattered. It points to a recurring problem.
Precisely. And the data backs this up strongly. It's not just a feeling, it's documented. There was a comprehensive coronial inquest looking into these cases, and others too. Deputy State Coroner Carmel Forbes oversaw that. And her findings were stark. She found at least 7 fatal dog attacks happened in NSW in just the last 15 years.
7 deaths in 15 years
Dog
from
farm.
dog attacks.
Yes. 7. And that figure really forces us to look beyond blaming just one dog or one owner in each case. It pushes us towards asking that really critical question. What systemic changes are actually needed? In our laws, yes, but maybe also in education and enforcement. What do we need to do differently to prevent these tragedies? To stop another Annalyse, another Blyton?
So the coroner didn't just document this awful pattern, she actually called for action.
She did,
Yeah.
explicitly.
Deputy State Coroner Forbes urged the government to overhaul the laws to prevent more deaths. Her words were powerful. She said, and I'm quoting here, "There have been a concerning number of dog attacks on people in NSW in the past 15 years that have resulted in serious injuries or even death."
A very direct statement.
And she added, "We must be committed to achieving modern outcomes and frameworks to avoid future tragedy and minimize the potential for similar attacks."
Modern outcomes and frameworks. That's key phrasing.
Yeah, it implies the current ones aren't cutting it. It was a clear plea for proactive change, not just reacting after the fact. So when Coroner Forbes talks about modern outcomes and frameworks, what does that actually mean in practice? What kind of legislative changes are we talking about?
That's really the core of the policy challenge now. It's likely a combination of things. There's always the debate around breed-specific legislation, BSL, labeling certain breeds inherently dangerous.
The dangerous breeds list, yeah. Always controversial.
Very. And Coroner Forbes' recommendations, along with a lot of current expert thinking, tend to lean more towards a deed not breed approach.
Okay, so focus on the individual dog's behavior and the owner's actions.
Exactly. It's about owner accountability.
Yep.
How are they managing the dog? Regardless of its label. This could mean things like stricter licensing rules, maybe mandatory training or socialization, especially for larger or powerful breeds. Some places use tiered registration fees. You pay less if you prove responsible ownership, like completing training or desexing.
Okay, so it's broader than just breed bans. What else falls under those modern frameworks you mentioned?
Well, definitely improving how dangerous dogs are declared and managed. Making that process faster, maybe more proactive, perhaps based on a pattern of behavior, not just one major incident.
Right, intervention before it escalates to a fatal attack.
Ideally, yes. And then there's a huge focus on prevention and education. Public awareness campaigns about dog safety, teaching kids how to interact with dogs, supporting responsible breeding.
Right.
It's a wide net.
Makes sense. But these sound like common sense measures. What are the roadblocks? Why haven't these frameworks been fully adopted before now in NSW, despite past tragedies?
The roadblocks. Well, there are several, and they're significant. One major one is the strong opposition to breed-specific bans. Animal welfare groups, many dog owners, they argue passionately that behavior comes down to training, environment, individual temperament, not just breed.
The punish the deed, not the breed argument.
Precisely. Another huge challenge is resources. Local councils and rangers are usually the ones enforcing these laws. Stricter rules need more staff, better training for those staff, more funding, and that's always a tough sell in budget discussions.
The practicalities of enforcement.
Exactly. And finally, it's just a politically difficult balancing act. Public safety versus the rights of responsible pet owners versus animal welfare. Lots of passionate stakeholders, deeply held beliefs on all sides.
But Annalyse Blyton's death, does that shift the dynamic? Does it add that urgency you mentioned?
I think it has to. It puts a human face, a young life, tragically cut short onto those statistics and inquest recommendations. It moves the conversation out of just reports and inquiries and squarely into the public arena with real emotional weight. It forces everyone, policymakers included, to ask, are our current systems really good enough? Is this acceptable?
That urgency is clear. But it brings up that tension again, doesn't it? Public safety demands action, but animal welfare groups push back against things like breed bans. How do policymakers navigate that? How do you find solutions that are effective, but also seen as fair?
It's incredibly tricky. There's no single magic bullet. Effective policy usually involves multiple strategies working together. So instead of outright bans, which face huge resistance, some places use restricted breed approaches. That might mean specific conditions for owning certain types of dogs, mandatory desexing, higher fencing standards, muzzling in public places, that sort of thing.
So management rather than a total ban.
Yes. And alongside that, you need robust owner liability laws, making owners clearly legally and financially responsible for their dog's actions. That creates a strong incentive for responsible management.
Holding owners accountable.
Definitely. And then there's the crucial piece of community education. We talked about it briefly. Teaching kids safe interaction, sure, but also educating owners about dog body language, the importance of early socialization, spotting warning signs, managing potential aggression before it becomes a crisis. It's about shifting from just reacting after an incident to proactively managing risk and building a culture of really informed, responsible ownership.
Thinking beyond the laws themselves, this
Mhm.
pattern of serious incidents, especially in places we think of as safe, like a home or yard, what does it tell us about how we collectively understand responsible pet ownership today in our modern, often urban lives?
That's a great question. I think it tells us our understanding maybe hasn't kept pace with our modern reality.
Yeah.
Look, for most people, a pet dog is family, truly love. The idea that this family member could cause devastating harm is, well, it's hard to accept. But dogs are still animals. They have instincts, behaviors that need understanding and careful management, especially now. In cities and suburbs, dogs often have less space, maybe less appropriate stimulation, and far more encounters with strangers, other dogs, unusual noises, compared to, say, a farm dog generations ago.
Right, the context is different.
Completely. So responsible ownership today has to be more than just food, water, walks, and love. It has to include active behavior management, proper socialization from young age, understanding the specific needs and tendencies of the breed or mix you have, recognizing subtle stress signals or warning signs. It means being a proactive guardian of your dog and public safety, not just a passive owner. And realizing that safe, even in your own yard, isn't guaranteed. It requires ongoing vigilance.
A proactive guardian. That's a powerful way to put it. This has been, well, a difficult conversation, but a really necessary one, I think. This deep dive into community safety, personal loss, and the real complexities of living with animals. We've seen how one terribly sad event, Annalyse Blyton's death, forces a critical, long-running conversation right back into the spotlight. It underscores those calls for real legislative reform, calls that, as you noted, have been made before.
Yes, the echoes are there.
It's clearly not just about one dog, one owner. It's about the whole system, our societal approach, and it demands a response that's both strong and smart.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a challenging thought to carry forward. As our lives become ever more intertwined with animals, how do we keep refining that delicate balance? The balance between the deep companionship we get from pets and the absolute necessity of ensuring public safety. What new laws, what community programs, what individual commitments will actually shape a safer, more harmonious future for everyone, people and animals alike? It's complex, no easy answers, but a question we absolutely have to keep asking and working on.
One question for you. Should NSW urgently tighten dog ownership laws following the death of 17-year-old Annalyse Blyton? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.